In 15 days until the NFL season kicks off. And guess what? We found out today that things will kick off in Philadelphia with the defending Super Bowl champs taking on the Dallas Cowboys. The opening game between the two NFC East rivals will be held on Thursday, September 4th from the Lincoln Financial Field. In 2 games last season, the Eagles beat the Cowboys by a combined score of 75-13. However, both of these teams saw some big changes this offseason. The Cowboys made a change at head coach, firing Mike McCarthy and promoting Brian Schottenheimer. Offensively, they added George Pickens last week, but lost offensive lineman Zach Martin to retirement. For Philadelphia, they'll need to replace some big names on defense, including Josh Sweat and Milton Williams. NFL insider Dan Graziano, NFL analyst Damian Woody, and betting analyst Tyler Fulgham are here with us now. Okay, Dan and Damian, starting with you. Answer this question first. How do you view the gap between the Cowboys and Eagles as they prepare to face each other in Week 1? D. Wood, going to you first.
Yeah, I still look at the Philadelphia Eagles as the runaway favorite in the NFC East. Not much has changed for the Philadelphia Eagles outside of with Kellen Moore moving on to becoming the head coach of the New Orleans Saints, and Kevin Patullo is now the offensive coordinator. I can't imagine the scheme is going to drastically change. Obviously, every coordinator is going to throw their own flavor into what they like to call, but I mean, listen, you got Saquon Barkley, in the backfield. You got all the weapons that the Philadelphia Eagles have. They're returning 4 out of the 5 starting offensive line. Their defense is young and very talented. So for me, this is Philadelphia's division to lose.
Yeah, I mean, look, Philadelphia is an incredibly high standard to hold yourself to right now. You could make a case that outside of a 6-week stretch at the end of the 2023 season, they have been the best team in football for the last 3 years. So the Cowboys are trying to catch now. Now, that said, the Cowboys did catch them and win the NFC East 2 seasons ago. And Shay, those 2 head-to-head games you mentioned both occurred without Dak Prescott, who is expected to be back and healthy for the start of the season. So when you talk about what the Cowboys have added on offense, you absolutely have to count that. George Pickens, they think, will help, obviously, at wide receiver. They think they drafted in a manner that will help them replace Zach Martin, and they believe the offense will get a boost from the return of its quarterback. He's had 6 fully healthy seasons in his NFL career. The Dallas Cowboys have won the division in 4 of those. So I think the gap, we probably forget a little bit. This is a Cowboys team that managed to win 7 games last year, even though its starting quarterback got hurt midway through. So while the Eagles are a tough team to catch, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that the Cowboys could close that gap.
We've forgotten so quickly, it feels like, haven't we, Dan Graziano? I'm surprised with you, but now we'll ask Tyler what he thinks about this situation. No. Give me some good bets for the Cowboys.
Yeah, I think if you're looking at futures for this Cowboys team, one that I really love is them going over 7.5 wins. Why is that? Because Dak Prescott's been a starting quarterback for 9 years in the NFL. The Cowboys have won at least 8 games in 7 of those 9 seasons. Shay, the only time they did not win 8 or more games is when Prescott missed more than half the games due to injury, 2020, 2024. So as long as Dak Prescott is healthy, you can pretty much bank on the Cowboys winning at least 8 games. So that's my favorite, is the win total over 7.5. Now for Cowboys fans, I want to point you to the bottom 2 there. 9+ wins or to make the playoffs. These are plus money bets. And you were talking about the gap between the Eagles and the Cowboys. I think the Cowboys are actually closer to the Commanders than the Commanders are to the Eagles. And most people say, wait a second, the Commanders are easily the second best team. They could challenge the Eagles for this division. I don't think so. I think the Cowboys, with a healthy Dak Prescott, some of the moves they made this offseason, are a more legitimate threat to the Commanders as the second best team than the Commanders are to the Eagles as the best team in this division.
Are we forgetting that the Eagles won the Super Bowl last year? Guys, we're not talking about a team that just got into the playoffs like the Commanders. The Cowboys and the Eagles are very far apart from one another. Graz, jump in on this.
This is the part where I remind you that it's been 21 years since the same team has won the NFC East 2 years in a row. Weird things happen in the NFC East. These teams are very competitive with each other. They're crunched very close together. The Cowboys are going to play a third-place schedule with their starting quarterback healthy after a year in which he missed half the season. Don't be surprised if they win more games than we're expecting them to win as we sit here in the middle of May.
Okay, it should also be pointed out, Damien, as you jump in here, that right now the Eagles are favored by only 6.5 points. That doesn't feel like a lot of points to me. Damien, what do you got?
Well, yeah, I mean, listen, this is the week 1. Remember, on paper, the Philadelphia Eagles are the best team in the National Football League. But when it comes to week one, anything goes, anything happens. You got to remember the Cowboys have a new head coach in Brian Schottenheimer. We don't know what they're going to throw out there, so anything can happen, and that's why I think the spread is what it is.
Okay, well, let's dive more on the other side of it. Let's dive in on the Eagles, right? They have a new offensive coordinator, but in terms of the biggest question mark, Damian, back to you, what do you have for the Eagles as they try and run it back?
Well, Shay, you just pointed out, new offensive coordinator, Kevin Patullo. We know that I don't think they're going to deviate far from the scheme that Kellen Moore ran, but he is a new offensive coordinator. Seems like almost every year, Jalen Hurts has to deal with a new offensive coordinator. How is this coordinator going to, how is the quarterback offensive coordinator relationship going to be? How is he going to call games? And how are in-game adjustments? Those are things that bears watching as we watch the Philadelphia Eagles this year. Yeah, we know they got Saquon Barkley. We know all the weapons that the Philadelphia Eagles have. But we have to watch how this offensive coordinator is going to call these games.
Okay. For the record, Jalen Hurts has had 5 different offensive coordinators since he joined the Eagles. It's been a lot. But, Dan, what are you hearing about the Eagles' plans on their OC, or on their offense, I should say, with their new OC?
Well, the big word you hear is continuity, and they believe that, Kevin Patullo, who worked very closely with Kellen Moore last year and has worked with Nick Sirianni for quite a number of years, will be able to, keep things largely the same. The personnel very much the same on the offensive side of the ball in terms of players for the Eagles. A lot of change on defense, not so much on offense. So there are questions. He's a first-time play caller. What will he be like as a play caller? Although he should probably call this one a lot where Saquon runs for 70 yards. That's a good play that he should be able to lean on. But this was an excellent running team last year. Historically great rushing attack. Inconsistent a little bit with the passing attack. So I think if there's a mandate for Kevin Patullo, is to see if they can become a little more consistently productive through the air than they were at times last year.
So a lot of talk, obviously, about the offense because the Philadelphia Eagles were very good, though, on both sides of the ball. They keep Vic Fangio there as their defensive coordinator. So when we focus in on a very young defense for Philadelphia, what's a bet you like there?
There's not a lot of ways to get good value on betting the Eagles because everyone expects them to be good. That's why the prices are expensive. But one way I would bet them right now for value is for their first-round draft pick, Jihad Campbell, to be the defensive rookie of the year. That's 13-1. Now, I'm going to pat myself on the shoulder here, Shay.
Okay.
Last year, I identified Jared Verse as my favorite preseason defensive player of the rookie of the year bet, and he went on to win that award. Campbell in Vic Fangio's system with Jalen Carter and those big bodies in front of him, Zach Bond beside him, is not going to be thought about very often by opposing offensive coordinators. He's going to have freedom with his elite athleticism to attack quarterbacks, to attack ball carriers, to drop in coverage. He, I think, could have 100 tackles, 10 tackles for a loss, 5 sacks, maybe an interception or 2 and a forced fumble. Big things could be coming for Jihad Campbell. I like him as an early rookie of the year on the defensive side of the ball bet.
Okay, I like this a lot. The only thing I'll say is Vic Fangio's defenses usually take a little bit of time. Now, the Eagles, because it's such a complex scheme, this is what I know from when he was a DC in Chicago. Now, the Eagles obviously have a lot of vets young, but it might take Campbell a little bit of time to get used there, but doesn't mean he can't win.
I think that's a fair point. I hope he's starting week 1, but if he has taken a long time, we're going to lose value on this bet. I'm guessing as a first-round pick, even though they're loaded with talent, they want him to be in there right away week 1 against Dak Prescott and the Cowboys.
Love it. Really good stuff, everyone. Dan, Damian, Tyler, thank you.
Disrespecting each other.
It wasn't just a game. It was a fist
They
fight.
think they're better than everybody
Why
else.
are they America's team?
We felt we had a better ball
Those
club.
people in Philly love to play Dallas.
I would describe their rivalry as gritty.
I don't know if there's any atmosphere like when we play the Eagles.
I don't know too many people that really like the Cowboys.
It's about who comes out there, who's more physical. I know when kids are born in Philly, the first thing that they're taught is to dislike the Cowboys. If you bleed green, you got it.
It's nothing they do special. The fans are very serious about this rivalry.
Dallas, we hate you.
They don't like us, we don't like them.
Y'all asking me questions like I should be worried about them. You know, never worried.
Division game, division rivalry.
You can't wait to see him again.
Oh yeah, we're about to get another chapter in that great Cowboys-Eagles rivalry. The NFL announced that the NFC East rivals will face off on Thursday, September 4th to open the season. By the way, that's just 115 days and change. It's coming, okay? It'll be here before we know it. Get your countdowns ready to go. I've got one on my phone. I'm just kidding. Welcome to NFL Live. Mina Kimes, Damian Woody, Dan Graziano here for the hour. Remember, the full NFL schedule release happens Wednesday, 8 Eastern on ESPN2. We'll be here for that. But let's get back to how the season will start. As we told you, Cowboys, Eagles. Here's a look at some of the biggest moves that each team made. The Cowboys had a very quiet free agency, but they traded for George Pickens and then added guard Tyler Booker in the draft, pass rusher Donovan Ezeraku, corner Siobhan Revel, and Eagles. They saw a bunch of key defensive players like Milton Williams and Josh Sweat leave in free agency. They did add linebacker Jahad Campbell and safety Andrew Nakuba in the draft. And they brought in Adoree Jackson and Azeez Ojulari in free agency. We wondered how the Eagles specifically would fill a lot of voids. Well, the Cowboys too. But, Mina, let's start with the Eagles adding youth on the defense as they lost 4 starters from that group that won the Super Bowl. And then when you see the ads for the Cowboys offense, how will it change what they're doing when these teams face off to open the season?
Yeah, I think that the Cowboys offense closed the gap on that side of the ball. We can talk about the other side of the ball where I'm a little bit more apprehensive of how they match up with Philadelphia. But I think offensively, this Cowboys offense really improved, and I think they're going to be able to field a more balanced attack. You know, when they drafted Tyler Booker, 12th overall, I had mixed feelings. Part of me loved the pick because this is a team that has drafted really well on the offensive line. It's been a focus of them, philosophy. They have a young group that got to play together last year, so there's continuity, which Damian knows the importance of. But I also felt like, dang, like really? No wide receivers for Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb getting double teamed. Then you go out and bring George Pickens, and suddenly it feels like the plan came together. Because of those receivers, they're going to face lighter boxes. They're going to be able to run the football better, I think, than they did last year. And it's going to be a handful for this Eagles defense, as good as they were last season.
Yeah, Mina, you touched upon it. I think the real key for the Dallas Cowboys is how well their offensive line comes together. This is a young unit. They've invested a lot of draft capital into this offensive line. And so we saw them struggle last year. But I think as, you know, with continuity, those guys start to trust each other and start playing better. And I think for this whole thing to come together for the Dallas Cowboys on offense, the offensive line and that rushing attack is going to be the key, because last year the Dallas Cowboys were 27th in rushing. I think that's too, you know, you don't want to be too top heavy especially going up against a team like the Philadelphia Eagles. So if this offensive line comes together, boy, they have something cooking in Dallas.
And remember, the biggest upgrade the Cowboys will make on offense is the return to health of their starting quarterback, Dak Prescott, who missed the second half of last season with an injury. When he's been healthy, they have generally been a good team. 6 seasons in the NFL that he has finished fully healthy. They've won the division in 4 of them. So they believe that that'll be a big help, regardless of what else they did. But yes, Brian Schottenheimer, now the head coach, overseeing the offense. His mandate is to get that run game functioning better. They think the draft pick of Tyler Booker will help. They've added a couple pieces at the running back position in free agency, but they could still poke around. There are potential trades out there, so they'll keep their eyes open for that. But yes, the George Pickens addition gives them the number 2 wide receiver they were looking for since the start of the offseason. Mina, I believe if Teteroa McMillan had still been there at 12, he's probably their pick. But since he wasn't, they went with the guy in Tyler Booker, who they had ranked as their top offensive lineman in the entire draft.
Yeah, a reminder that Dak Prescott missed both of the games against the Eagles last season, so certainly this Cowboys team looks a lot different with him at the helm. Mina, when you look at the Eagles offense, the biggest change, new offensive coordinator Kevin Patullo, who they promoted from within. Now, the last time they did that, of course, it didn't go well. This, by the way, Jalen Hurts' 12th play caller in 10 years. What's key for the Eagles to be more successful this time around?
Yeah, well, you know, on one hand, calling plays for this Eagles offense is not exactly rocket science. You got a top 3 or better offensive line, top 3 running back, top 3 wide receiver duo. You got an extremely good quarterback in Jalen Hurts, Super Bowl MVP. It's not exactly reinventing the wheel. But as you alluded to, Laura, the last time they had that change and in terms of an offensive coordinator leaving for a head coaching opportunity, it didn't go well with their Brian Johnson, who was offensive coordinator after Shane Steichen. It felt like he kind of hit copy-paste and didn't really develop or evolve the offense the way we saw last year with Kellen Moore, some tweaks, giving Jalen Hurts more answers versus the blitz, some of the evolution of the run game. So I think for Kevin Patullo, it really comes down to you don't have to make wholesale changes, but you do have to continue growing and game plan specific changes, integrating new personnel here and there. And I think those little tweaks, particularly in season, are going to be key to whether or not the Eagles can get back to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, listen, this is the biggest thing I'm watching for with the Philadelphia Eagles. Listen, I don't expect wholesale changes offensively because, when you have the personnel that the Philadelphia Eagles have, there's no reason to do that. But every offensive coordinator have their own way of calling plays. And so that bears watching. And I think the biggest thing when you talk about a new offensive coordinator is how well they adjust in game. I think that's the biggest thing that we're going to see, how well, from series to series, half to half, how well, the new offensive coordinator will be able to adjust. I think that's going to go a long way to kind of ease and maybe some concerns going into the season on that side of the ball.
Again, Thursday, September 4th, it kicks off the 2025 NFL season between the Cowboys and Eagles. By the way, ESPN Bet has the line out for week 1. Eagles, early 7-point favorites. They are the defending Super Bowl champs. News out of Cincinnati to get to you guys. Trey Hendrickson made this statement today to ESPN. Quote, no communication has taken place between my camp and the organization post-draft. The offers prior to the draft did not reflect the vision we shared and were promised last offseason if I continue to play at a high level. Coaches are aware of these past conversations. Rather than using collaboration to get us to a point to bring me home to the team, they are no longer communicating. I have been eagerly awaiting a resolution of this situation, but that's hard to do when there's no discussion and an evident lack of interest in reaching mutual goals. The Bengals, of course, need Hendrickson on the field. In the last 3 seasons, Hendrickson has 39% of the Bengals sacks. That's the highest of any pass rusher in the NFL. 4 percentage points higher than the next closest player, who happens to be Myles Garrett at 35%. Graz, help us out here. What's going on with Hendrickson and the Bengals?
Obviously, he's frustrated that the Bengals haven't offered him what he feels he deserves, and he's frustrated at the pace of the negotiations. Now, we have heard from Bengals front office people earlier this offseason. They feel that they've made fair offers to Trey Hendrickson and that he should be happy with them, but he's obviously not. Look, he says no communication since the draft. The draft was 2 weeks ago, so that's not necessarily like a massive gulf of time, and certainly no deadlines have been missed. But when the Bengals have had issues getting veterans signed to extensions in the past, the issue has been future year guarantees. They have traditionally not guaranteed any money beyond the first year of the contract in these veteran deals. They made exceptions for Joe Burrow and most recently Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. So if you're Trey Hendrickson, you just led the league in sacks, you're probably thinking, well, why not me too? If there's an answer, it's that those 3 guys were 26 years old at the times they signed their deals. Trey Hendrickson is 30. That's a significant difference to an NFL team in terms of age, and it's entirely possible that the Bengals would be more hesitant to guarantee money further out in the deal than they were with the younger stars on their roster.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, even if you look at the production and say, well, certainly that doesn't matter as it relates to the age, because the production is just about as good as it could be, but still a very interesting perspective into how different organizations do things. Damian, what do you think of the public negotiations by Hendrickson? Because maybe this was avoidable, but now it's all out there, right?
The Bengals are doing so well. They were doing so well. They signing both of the wide receivers, and it seems like the Bengals have gone back bangling again with Trey Hendrickson. I mean, you're talking about a guy over the last 2 seasons has 35 sacks. Like, literally, this is one of the best defensive players that we have in our game. And we saw how bad this Bengals defense was. You bring in, you replace Lou Amaruno, and you bring in Al Golden as the new defense.